Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Oak Tree Woodland Walk. And it is an absolute honor to have our guest today, Abigail Iquo Isuo, integrative transpersonal psychotherapist, and someone who has made a huge impression on me in my own journey because Abigail was the therapist, the horseshoe facilitator, we call it, in a retreat called the Path of Love that I attended many years ago, and for me was one of the most profound psychedelic experiences without any psychedelics. So it's incredible to have Abigail here, because when I look at your face, Abigail, I just remember the amazing holding and the incredible experience of transformation that our whole group had under your guidance, with your support that week many years ago. So thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's always really special to talk with you again, huh? And just look at all the amazing work that you're doing. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you, Abigail.
Mm.
So we wanted to invite you to this month, the oak tree, the tree for July, because it's about accepting all the parts of ourselves. And the image we have of the oak tree is of how an oak tree is home to so many different species, more than any other tree. And it creates this sanctuary, this ecosystem where the ants and the wild boar and also the birds, they all are all welcome to come and feast on the acorns that the oak tree provides. So it's this sense of having enough resource to feast all the different parts of ourselves, even the ones like the aggressive boar or the, sneaky spider that we might feel that we don't really want to be welcoming. And the Path of Love um, retreat that we did is a lot about really welcoming all the parts of ourselves. And you was such an incredible, you gave us such permission to welcome and get to know the parts of ourselves that we might want to push away or repress. So could you tell us a bit about the Path of Love and how you came to work with the Path of Love team?
Okay, huge questions, right? Can I tell you a bit about Path of Love? I can. Many people have kind of said to me it's actually not what they would call a retreat anymore. It's
Mm,
more a deep dive process. And if I was to relate it to the oak tree, it's like kind of meeting people as they come in, which is like as an acorn, right? As this kind of little shell, which is formulated around our kind of personality. And we all know that we have certain strategies that kind of have helped us survive through life. And so Path of Love meets those survival strategies. And then as the process goes on, dives deep and cracks the acorn shell open. And then we get to dive in through different kind of experiences, from inquiry to movement to deep active meditation, exposure, therapeutic work, spiritual work, and we get to dive into the core of who we really are. And there's something just extraordinary about that because we're also incredibly unique. So it's never the same process. I mean, you never meet in the same groups, although the structure has a particular formula. We have this opportunity to really find out our essential self through really being incredibly truthful and going to what I might call the most important piece, which is what really matters, which in Path of Love we call the longing, which the Sufis speak about as being homesickness of the heart, cracking open of the heart so that we really can find our true qualities, our true essential expression. So in a acorn shell, that is a little bit about kind of what the process kind of travels through, journeys through. It's a really beautiful adventure, and it's intense, of course, but it really knocks up against the falsehoods so that truth can reveal itself. So that's the process. How did I get involved in Path of Love? Well, I'm a psychotherapist and a transpersonal psychotherapist, nearly 25 years now. And I was just always so intrigued by human condition, by really the depth of our potential, yet we're not really expressing our potential as a human kind of humanity, as humanity. And so I did a lot of different trainings and a different kind of deep dives. And I met back in the day the works, the teachings, the philosophy of Osho in his controversial way of making things make sense in a very paradoxical way, which of course for some people is very scary. But really the depths of his teachings hold ancient wisdoms. And that for me bypasses anything that we might call controversial. So I did a lot of trainings that he kind of created through different Osho therapists, from pulsation, which is a deep breath work based on Reikian methodologies. I did family constellations. I did all of the active meditations, and I just made them very much a part of my everyday, together with the transpersonal and then all of the other methodologies that I came upon, young, elemental, a lot of the different kind of schools of thought that are out there that all have a place in my heart. And eventually I came across one of my colleagues who actually trained in the same place I trained, and he said, "How come you haven't done Path of Love?" And so I met then with the founder, and he's like, "Well, there's one next week." And the one next week was in Greece. And I was living in Greece for like 10 years. So I was like, there's a sign, you know, when you get those, it's a sign. So I did one of those, jump on a plane, and I went through the process. And really, it just has some real special gifts where you really are faced with yourself and all of the artifacts that are made up and based on conditioning and full of programming. And all of those kind of fall away. And there's something just so exquisite when that persona falls away and you're just left with the rawness, the purity, the innocence of who you can be at your true core. And so from that moment, I thought, wow, this really has ingredients that just speak to my being, my heart, my soul. And so then I kind of jumped on board, and the journey has kind of just continued and deepens and expands. And yeah, it's forever a place of growing, transforming, and learning. And that really is my calling. So
Aw.
I might go that direction.
Oh, it's so lovely to remember that week and the how profound the experience was for everybody in our group. So,
Mm.
you know, in our small group that you were kind of holding, like we all had such a profound experience. And the other thing is, obviously, ASA is an integration community. It's a lot about holding on to the insights, bringing them into our daily lives, much more than with psychedelic experiences that sometimes quite hard to like integrate because they're quite far out. I
Yes.
found integrating the path of love experience so um kind of easier, or it really affected my day-to-day life afterwards, and it's ongoing. The integration from that, many years later, there was
Mm.
one particular picture that I drew that represented kind of the different I defined it as like different jumpers I could wear, like different personas, different defense mechanisms that I would put on. And I still think of things in terms of these, like there's like a green jumper, a yellow jumper, and a pink jumper. And it, like that image, like I still know when I'm putting one of those jumpers on, and can try and remember to like that it's not the whole truth. And so, yeah, I think it's a masterful process. And the quality of the facilitation also completely bowled me over. I've never experienced such profound, delicate, but also quite kind of directive intervention, where you really surrender and let go because you trust that you're with people that really you really know that you can, it's safe to let go. And everybody kind of does, you know, it's this kind of group process of real transformation without any substances. So
It's,
how can people find out more about it, Abigail? Like, and how often does it happen?
First of all, it's beautiful just to hear how your experience is still alive in you. That is really, it's true. And many people mark their life post Path of Love, a pre-Path of Love person and then a post-Path of Love person. And of course, as facilitators, we're also very different. We all have our own style. But I think there is something about the holding of the field of Path of Love, that actually when 80 odd people come together with this love of the truth and deep desire and longing for a calling, for a purpose, for meaning, it becomes such a field of awareness and consciousness that it really is quite profound. Yeah. So how can people get more information? Well, of course, we have a website, and that is also in the making. So it's a new and beautiful, sparkly website is being created as we speak. And that is pathretreats.com. And we are global. We are in 16 different countries. In the UK, we happen 3 times a year, which is March, June, and November. And then, of course, we have in Italy, we have in Portugal, we have in Brazil, we have in Canada and in the States. But on the website, everything is laid out there. So you can kind of feel into your being. We have a gorgeous home in the UK, I have to say, in the Yorkshire Dales. Very, very beautiful. Broughton Sanctuary. And I think there's something about the nature that holds us, Also, we have in Greece, I forgot to say, of course. So all of the venues have their own unique flavor. And it's like kind of, hey, where you called, and of course, which timing works. And in all those different pathways, we have different teams. But yeah, everything on the website.
Thank you. And the other thing, I guess, to say before we move on to your other work as well, the other thing about Path of Love that I always think is really moving is that people, when you've done the Path of Love, you can work on the Path of Love, and that people actually pay to have the experience of working. And when I first heard that, I was like, people pay for their accommodation to work? They don't get paid, they pay. Really? What is that about? And then when I myself had done the Path of Love, I was like, I cannot wait to pay to work at this.
Isn't
And
that extraordinary? It
yeah.
really is. And to your point, where you were saying actually the resources and the tools that you learn through the process are there and they're there for life. And really, you use them to integrate. Another part of this whole beautiful process is that you are part of the Path of Love community, and they come right back in and they staff and they pay to be there. And it's like, I pinch myself, but there is something about recognizing what you get in terms of like-minded, hearted, soul people, and therefore you have a particular language. So you can go around the world, and many people have said, "Hey, I met someone just by randomly on a train that we got discussing and talking, and they're like, 'Hey, I've done Path of Love. This is amazing. Hey, you've done it. I've done it.' And then all of a sudden, it's almost like you've known each other forever." It really is like that. It's like something cellular happens. And for me, there's something incredibly important, massively significant about that. It's like I'm not interested anymore in doing processes about change or well-being or surface level. It's like really what penetrates the soul, what is transformative, so that when that wood is burned, it's not going back to the piece of wood, it's transformed. And it's a little bit like that in Path of Love. Not a little bit, it is like that. You go through, something is burned inside, that no longer serves you, the falsehoods, that you've been pretending to be in order to be accepted is gone. It can fall away. And you really can step into an authentic expression of yourself, which is transformative. And that, I think, is like, yeah, that's valueless. That's why people pay to come back and stuff.
And because of the experience, because I did staffing one time, I loved it. Like the experience of being able to be witnesses to other people's process of that and feel the field that you talk about and be in that field it felt like it amplified my own journey, and it felt like it was just such a privilege to hold space for others. And actually that whole idea around doing your own work and then holding space for other people, it has permeated into the very core of our ACER community. And I think that's something that I really learned from the path of love, which is actually the bit that was the most healing for me, was being able to be there for other people and
That's
share.
that's beautiful. You know, the transformative piece is that people are witnessed. That is everything that we as human beings always have wanted. It's a deep need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be really witnessed in our pain, in our vulnerability, in our authenticity. That is what has been missing. And so Path of Love cannot work without the contribution of the staff. It really is based on that generosity of spirit that comes when something is opened. You know, it's like we stop kind of wanting to get something, but really genuinely give something. And that, I think, is really a core piece of the whole Path of Love process.
Oh, makes me so nostalgic. I really need to come back soon.
Yes,
And
you do. We miss you there.
oh, I miss all of it. Every moment was just so rich and kind of fragrant. It was just a kind of just really incredibly sacred experience as well. It was my most direct access to something spiritual. It's my first experience of really understanding yeah, like the space between the thoughts, or the contact with the everything. It was
I
yeah.
love that because it is true. It's like we do the horizontal, which is really our timeline, how we've been imprinted, all of our personal development that has created that shell or image, which of course is incredibly important. And once we really do that work and we're seen in it, in our wounds, in our injuries, in our shadow, there is the vertical, you know, that is bigger than us. Without that being a cliche, without that being woohoo or a spiritual bypass, we really are feet on the ground. Let's feel this stuff. Let's really go in to the nitty-gritty parts of it. And it's almost like through that suffering or that real deep dive into that we're not supposed to look at, a light opens. And then really the connection with something that's bigger that we might call life force or existence or the sacred or the divine really is so tangible. And I watch that over and over again. And it's just so heart expansive. I mean, it's quite extraordinary to really, it's not so easy to put it into words because it loses its like kind of richness. But that capacity to really bear witness to the opening and the unbelievable expansion that you see in people when it's almost like beam me up, Scotty, you know, you see the light
Yeah.
comes and it's like, oh my gosh, and it touches people in such exquisite ways, and then you see this kind of brightness and just yeah, it's just delicious to be a part of, huh?
Mm. Oh, it really is. I hope people can, I mean, I'm sure people will be really inspired by hearing this, because
Um,
yeah, it's really visceral, that feeling of yeah, just how it's amazing to hear how extraordinary you still find it. You know, it's something that you can, I imagine, work in forever, and it would just continue to be full of inspiration and joy and magic, really.
I think it's a bit like that. I think our founders now, Rafi and Durer, are in, let's just say, their 70s. And really, you can see it in both of them, that actually the light, the beauty, the inspiration, the hunger, the spiritual, everything is just beaming. And you know why? And I know Rafia says it a lot, why to retire? Something you retire when you really kind of like kind of beyond, you know, and you want to go and play golf or something. But to retire from this for what? What
Yes.
for? It has such purpose and meaning in it. Unbelievable.
And so rejuvenating. It's work that gives back so much, although I imagine also quite exhausting at the end of a,
Do you know
yeah.
what? I actually don't get exhausted. I really don't. There's some, it's almost like I say often, making my vocation my vacation. It's almost like, I get fed too. It's like the expansion and the beauty and what is possible is so alivening that really, I said the last time, right, let's start again. We just finished one. I could, okay, let's take a day, turn around, we could start all over again. And maybe that's not true for everyone, but really that kind of, yeah, I don't know, that hunger inside of me for really the depth and the richness that comes when you are aligned with the mystery is it just brings a real deep magical experience, not in that addictive way that I need more, but just like it's a life force energy and it's fluid and it's kind of moving through you. And I have that African side. I like to dance and be rooted and feel, energy and life moving in such a deep felt sense way. It's like, wow, what else to do
Yes.
without drugs, right?
Yes, and it was so much fun and so celebratory and like so
Yeah.
embodied, so visceral. And oh, I really am feeling like I need to get on your website and finding finding a date soon. Maybe somewhere sunny as well. That would be nice to make. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about your other work as well, because I know that in your private practice you see people for couples therapy, you see people for individual therapy, and you also do breath work and you do family constellations as well.
Yeah.
And loads of other things. You've done EMDR, I mean, just millions of different things. But any of those that you'd like to talk about, Abigail, like what feels like, what other things are inspiring you at the moment?
Oh, what's inspired me? Well, I just actually have come out of a women's retreat that I ran with 20 fabulous women. And that is like kind of a concoction of all the different pieces that I love. So in there is deep breath work where I was using binaural beats, which it allows this bilateral kind of stimulation. So it's almost like bringing the EMDR into the breath work. So it's like massaging the brain on some level. So it's allowing the busyness of the mind to just relax whilst allowing the wisdoms of the body to really come alive, from the instinctual to the emotional to the deep kind of inherited aspects. So we go on this beautiful journey through our own timeline and therefore allow ourselves to remember our origins, like how we came in, look at those imprints. And a lot of my work involves these pieces, look at the imprints that have forged us, that have molded who we believe we are, to then looking at the inner child, and that kind of part that really often gets ignored or hidden because there's been certain hurts or traumas, and just allowing ourselves to reconnect with some deep instinctual felt sense experiences, because that actually is what drives a lot of our decisions. Even though we're adults and we think we're making clean cut decisions, it's kind of just not true. And so, really diving right back in there and holding the hand of that inner person allows the purity, the innocence, the vulnerability to come online again. And then traveling through and then recognizing certain conditions and beliefs and programs that we have been kind of imbued with allows the systemic work, and looking at that kind of heritage that comes on from our parents. But I often say, you get to that point, and then that's when we often see a lot of rage in people, that actually, this is what my mother did, this is what my father did. But then we're missing the point that hurt people hurt people. And we're having to look at like kind of what our parents came to the table with, and what was unresolved there that then is passed on to us. What are our loyalties to the suffering, to the pain? Where did we get kind of enmeshed? And how do we unmesh ourselves and kind of cut the umbilical cord on many different levels and layers, right back to transgenerational kind of traumas? And and journey then to discover, hey, actually, all of these pieces have kind of created a particular person that I present myself with, many of which are kind of defenses, where we are stopping ourselves from really being who we are because we're trying to protect ourselves and defend ourselves against all of these kind of hurts that have been interpreted within our being in kind of painful ways. And so the whole journey with all of these different, they're just methodologies, but they allow us to go in to actually understand the defense mechanisms, understand protections, understand that actually facing some of the deep, frightening shadow trauma pieces allows for liberation. So, I mean, I went from the women's retreat, but those are the different pieces that are in there, which will eventually allow us really to get to this point, which for me is really essential. It's like waking up. And so those methodologies are there just to wake up. And then when we wake up, we got to clean up. And there's different pieces to clean up and cathart and allow ourselves to release, but in a conscious way. So the breath work is like superventilation as opposed to hyperventilation. And superventilation on that level means conscious. We're conscious about actually how we're breathing, deep breaths, so that when a release comes, it really is a felt release. And so really allowing these pieces to then show us what do we need to clean up. And in the cleaning up, we have the ability to grow up and really grow the parts that are fragmented or the parts that we really have kind of hidden, denied, suppressed, tried to escape from. That's what we do. To then, when we've grown up and really pulled our pieces to the best of our ability, we can show up, and I think it's a continuous, beautiful journey. And so the retreats, whether they're 1 day, 2 day, or 4 or 7 day events, are really with this at the core, waking up and finding out what happened to the authentic, essential expression of who we really are. So that's a kind of a culmination of different pieces, from the women's retreats to constellations to breath work to 1 days. All of them at their core really have that waking up element into our true potential, becoming our better selves, better versions of who we can be.
Mm. Wow. And I can only imagine that doing this work with women, because of the path of love is not just women, that there might be a kind of, well, yeah, how would you say, I can really feel that it might be really quite powerful, because there aren't that many spaces that I know of that are just women. How do you find the work different when it is just women? What's allowed that isn't, yeah, what does it help to create?
I mean, that's beautiful. If I think back to these last days, there's a sisterhood that happens, which is very different from a gossipy, bitchy, competitive space. It's like really people are there to be seen and to see, to really, can I see you? Can you see me feeling you? And I mean, I'm sure that can be done with guys too, in that brotherhood space. And I love to work and with women and with men and have that interweave. It's beautiful. You do a women's group, a men's group, and then you come together. And so coming back to what I saw happened was this real deep ability to be vulnerable with each other and to stop like trying to fix each other or compete with each other. It's like kind of we were able to recognize jealousies, envies, and put them on the table and realize that in being that truthful, like you have something I want, and just admitting that and being seen and witnessed in that allows for something to really dissipate. And this illusion of what we think is grass is greener, or you have something I really want, kind of just falls away. And there's an ability to really become authentic in your own being with who you are. Often, I hear women really speak from a place of, I wish I was something other than I am, which is really excruciating. in the core being, because it leads to this self-loathing and self-hatred, and then all kinds of addictions and eating disorders and body loathing, and that's so common with women. But actually being able to be any shape, size, creed, or color, or whatever you come with, to be held by other women who also admire something you have that they don't have, and really celebrate that in each other, helps the celebration and the authenticity that wants to be expressed within each female. And the feminine energy, I mean, of course, feminine, masculine is another kind of journey, but that energy is powerful when we recognize that, yes, we can nurture, and at the same time, we can also say no. The same time, we can also own that, hey, I hold rage, I'm angry, and go to the places that are not supposed to be in the feminine realm, and really have that opportunity to express it brings a real embodiment, which is empowering. So being witnessed as a very different female from the lady opposite you, and standing in that with your expression of anger, of rage, of jealousy, of hatred, whatever it might be, and not being judged for it, not being punished for it, allows for an integration, like an ownership. And it's like, I call it radical responsibility, where we take radical responsibility and accountability for what is passing through us, as opposed to pretending it's not there and doing the whole suppression piece, which then leads to collapse or an inflation or a masculinized kind of version of the feminine. Where we are kind of possessed by the animus, and we have to prove ourselves to be bigger, better, stronger, faster, more equipped. It's like, actually, there's a relaxation of having to be a better male version, because we need to prove that we're strong and powerful. When you really have an opportunity to find your pieces and really go into the vulnerability and what we have called weakness, but actually allow the innocence and the purity to land, there is a real, you can see it, something comes, and this empowerment drops in, and then you don't have to effort at being strong or courageous. It's there. It's just innate. It's there. It's our birthright. We just denied it within us. And of course, society has kind of had an impact on that. But it's like being able to face your reality in its truth brings the embodiment, the empowerment, the truthful version of the feminine in all of its unique aspects.
Oh, such important work you're doing, Abigail. And how can people find the women's retreats? Are you doing them just in the UK, or are they happening in other places as well?
Well, I have done them in Portugal, I've done them in Holland, I've done them in the UK, and they watch the space because they're moving. Perhaps in Bulgaria we have, in Croatia we have, and then the States is calling. So there are opening spaces, and so that is all on my website. I have to kind of up the website because we need to get it up to date, but maybe not all of them are on there, but future they will be. And that's potentialcharisma.com.
And it's a beautiful website. And I
Oh,
hope everyone listening will go and have a look at it and get to experience the absolute power and energy of working with Abigail, which has been one of really like one of the highlights of my journey, and soon to be repeated, I hope. So
that's beautiful.
thank you so much, Abigail. So many other people I know have also been so helped by you, and finding these kind of resonant, powerful guides and teachers and mentors on the journey is so important for us. So yeah, I'm really grateful for your kind of service to so many people, like a whole network of people. And yeah, really can't wait to see what unfolds in the future. So thank you.
Thank you too, Ross, for the work you're doing. It's also fundamental. It really is. And that whole interweaving of all the beauty that nature holds, as well as our plant medicines hold, it's fundamental in our evolution. And I think the direction of where this work is going. So big thank you and appreciations for asking me and inviting me here.
Thank you so much for being with us, and see you soon.
Yes, big love.
Big love back.
Ciao, ciao.